If you're working with a broker, which is not a bad idea, understand that that broker works for the seller. So they're going to tell you, you can increase the income. It's not being managed properly, but you can manage it better. And this area is a C- and not a D.
Welcome to the Rental Property Owner and Real Estate Investor Podcast, brought to you by the Rental Property Owner Association, providing benefits and services to real estate investors and rental property owners for over 48 years. With your host, Brian Hamrick from Hamrick Investment Group.
This episode is sponsored by Green Property Management, managing everything from single-family homes to apartment complexes in the West Michigan area. Find out more at greenpropertymgt.com. And Mike Murphy at JB Harrison Insurance, helping real estate investors to understand and choose their best options for all their insurance needs. Call 616-868-0050 or email mikem@jbhins.com. Hello and welcome to episode 162. I'm very excited to be talking to my guest today because she's had such a positive impact on my multifamily and apartment investing trajectory. I joined Sue Nelson's coaching program back in 2012 because I needed to understand better the nuts and bolts process of investing in apartments and raising money from investors. And Sue and her coaching team helped me get to where I am today. Sue is a master of the creative real estate deal. She's done commercial short sales, loan modifications, options, master leases, JV agreements, note buys, you name it, Sue has done it. And she's bringing her multifamily and apartment investing training to Grand Rapids, Michigan for the RPOA's Michigan Landlord and Real Estate Investor Free Conference and Expo on February 21st through 23rd of 2019. This is the largest landlord and real estate investor conference in the Midwest, and Sue will be teaching over 4 hours between that Friday and Saturday. You can register for free by going to rpoaonline.org. Sue, I've been looking forward to this conversation. Thanks for joining me.
Oh, I have been too, Brian. It is so awesome to be on this call and hear about all your units that you've acquired and stuff. That's my favorite thing in the world, to have one of my coaching students succeed so much the way you have. So it's a thrill to be on here and to be talking to your students, your listeners, and to be getting ready for this Michigan Landlord and Real Estate Investor conference. I'm really psyched. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, it's going to be fantastic. It's always a big event every year. We're looking forward to having you. Really glad you're able to teach both Friday and Saturday. And you're also very likely going to be on a panel on Saturday morning talking about buying notes as well.
I love those panels because then you get to meet a lot of the other movers and shakers who are doing notes or buying apartments or buying a residential. It's great. I enjoy that. And I enjoy seeing everyone. I've always been a lot more, I'm not a speaker. I'm definitely a doer in multifamily real estate. I do own over 1,700 units, apartments that I'm holding. I and my partners have owned over 4,000 units in the past, or done different deals with them, very creative deals, like you said. But I really love to go and talk to people too, because I'm a teacher at heart. I started as an art teacher, and I get to see everyone face to face, so and kind of get immersed in that excitement. I love conferences and I love sharing ideas and just sharing ideas with the attendees and stuff and hearing what they're doing and stuff. So thank you for inviting me, and thank you for being my student too, because it's going to be so great to see you.
Yeah, I couldn't be more thrilled to have you there. Let's talk a little bit about you, though. I know that a big part of your investing has to do with your why. And that's the first time I ever heard that expression, know your why. I heard it from you. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, everyone talks about your why now. And I thought I was a little bit newer on that idea. But, the only reason why I talk about it so much, or I usually mention it, is because it really did propel me into getting into real estate. I was an art teacher, so I had no financial background, and I had no interest in making money, actually, none. I think I had a bad mindset about money. I think I had a feeling that people who had money were almost even selfish or something, and nothing could be really further from the truth, because if you really try hard to make money, if you really actually start working towards your legacy and your financial future and stuff, I've found that those are some of the most think out of the box, some of the greatest philanthropists and even charity driven people. So there is no correlation between money and evil. But I was an art teacher, so my thought was, okay, if I'm going to be a really successful artist, I'm going to be starving on the street of New York City, and that will be the best success I could ever dream for. So that was sort of my goal. And then I had my son Fox, and again, I was an art teacher, and I was going to school every day and teaching art to high school kids and middle school kids, and I loved that. And then I got pregnant and had another baby 18 months later, and I had a perfect pregnancy, but everything kind of went bad really quickly, and she was asphyxiated at birth. And her name is Vale, and they said they gave her a 50% chance of living. This was her prognosis, and 100% chance of being a vegetable. And so that was completely devastating for me. That was a complete and utter change. In fact, I had a C-section. She was in the NICU for 6 weeks, kind of fighting for her life. And within 6 days, I was trying to search out, okay, I was certain that she was going to live, walk, talk, and do all sorts of things. And I was going to do everything in my power to make that happen. But for some reason, something fixated on me within those 6 days, where I was like, well, who's going to take care of her if I die? Suddenly it was all about my death. Who's going to want to take care of her? And I mean, I didn't know, because, you're facing this black hole. You have no idea what to expect. The doctors are extremely, we'll have to wait and see. There's nothing we could do. There's nothing you can do, all of those things. And it's sort of a negative experience. In fact, the doctors, and some of the doctors were so caring. So I'm not trying to, say anything about doctors, but they sounded like, Charlie Brown's teachers, they're wah, 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 wah. That's all I could hear. And it was good that that's all I could hear. But I tried really hard I was like, okay, I got to make money. I got to make money fast. I got to figure out her, how do I take care of her? So that launched this whole thing. And I went and got a book called Multiple Streams of Income by Robert Allen, who's actually a friend of mine now. And I ended up, looking at everything, and I came down to real estate, just kept coming down to real estate. So I actually went to a convention like the one that you're going to have in February 21st to the 23rd. And that was, it was so enlightening. I couldn't believe it. I saw speaker after speaker tell us these amazing, how you can make money doing this and how you can make money doing that, all real estate techniques. I took 17,000 pages of notes. I still have it. It's like a 5-subject notebook, and it's 90% full of my handwriting from that one weekend. But I was so psyched, and I got really into it, and I was really into the idea of buying larger apartment complexes, even though I had no money. I had no friends with money, no family with money, and I wasn't going to ask them anyway, because they would have thought I was insane. So what I did was learn everything I could learn about apartments. I had looked at about 100 properties, but all online. The way I taught you when I was coaching you, you can do it all, from your seat, So I'd put the kids to bed, and I would get out. I would have contacted brokers and contacted different people throughout, kind of online, and then I just run these numbers of these apartment complexes through this cash flow analyzer. And I got so into it, and I actually got really good at it. By doing that, I learned so much about sort of the ins and outs of it. Well, within 4 months, I had, and I only could put about 2 or 3 hours a week onto this. But within 4 months, I had a 104 unit apartment complex under contract. And, in commercial.
Wait, that was within 4 months of going to your first real
Yeah.
estate event?
Yeah. Isn't that cool?
That's great.
Well, see, that's the thing is, knowledge is power, and you really learn everything from everyone else. That was a new concept I needed to learn because I was an original artist, or I wanted to be so original. Once I started kind of copying other people before me, that's when I became successful monetarily. I feel like I was successful earlier because I was teaching and, really giving passion to my students and all of that, and igniting their sort of fire, which is really probably my greatest goal, is to really just make other people happy in that sense. But anyway, so knowledge is really important. It really is. And you can get that knowledge from people like us. And I think that's really important for people to understand. It doesn't matter if you're 30 years old or 70 years old, it's never too late. You need like about 2 years to get started to really make some impact in this career move. And you don't have to do it all, you don't have to raise all the money yourself. You just have to really find the deal when it's these larger deals, and people will buy them from you. So this is what actually happened to me. So I get this 104 unit under contract, and I actually went to these REIA groups, landlord associations as well.
I'd like to take a moment to tell you about Green Property Management. Not only do they manage everything from single-family homes to apartment complexes in the West Michigan area, they also manage my entire portfolio. So I can tell you from personal experience that their unique flat fee management style is worth a closer look. If you feel that your property isn't operating to its fullest potential, then Green Property Management can help you take a holistic approach that will save you money, eliminate your headaches, and increase your net income. And if you're a property manager interested in applying Green Property Management's model, give them a call at 1-866-95-GREEN or visit them on the web at greenpropertymgt.com. And be sure to stop by their booth at the RPOA's annual conference.
Well, first I called up a mortgage broker, and I found a guy that I had found at that first conference that I went to. And he looked at the deal, and he said, this is a great deal. It's one of the best deals I've seen in a long time. He said, if you don't want to, or if you can't close on this deal, I can raise the money for you, not the secondary part, but the actual mortgage. I can get the mortgage. But if you don't want to do this deal, it's like, I have investors and what have you, and I'll buy it from you. I was like, really? And, I had put no money down on this deal yet because it was just a contract. It was really a letter of intent, and we were still working on the contract. Then I brought it to this lawyer, and he said the same thing. He said, I'm going to help you close this deal, and he's still my lawyer today, by the way. And he said, if you can't close this deal, everyone was sure I wouldn't close this deal, by the way. And he said, I would buy this from you, and I have a lot of investors, and they would invest in it. So then I bring it to this real estate, and I like this is good to know. This is good to know. Then I brought it to this REIA group, the Real Estate Investment Association, and I heard this guy was looking for multifamily apartment deals, and he had a good amount of money. So I sat right down next to him, and I showed him my deal after I got to know him a little bit by sitting next to him. And he's like, wow. He's like, you know what? I would invest in this deal. I would not give you all the money if I invest in it, but I'll give you some. And he said, but I would also love to buy it from you. And I said, really? I'm making as a art teacher. I was half-time at this point because I had 2 babies. And I had taken actually a leave of absence when my daughter was born. And, this guy, the investor said, if you can't close on this deal, I would love to buy it from you. I'm like, okay. So I give him I let him look over the deal a little longer. And I said, so how much would you buy it from me for? And he said, and now this was a $3.2 million deal. Again, I had no money. And he said, well, I'll give you $125,000 for it.
Oh my gosh.
That was 5 times the amount of money that I was making as a teacher. So I was like floored, and I was so excited, and I thought, okay, so I always have these 3 people sort of in my back pocket. What if I try to close on this deal, and then I can always sell it to them a little later. So I ended up closing on the deal. Actually, I ended up leaving art teaching. I gave them my notice after the contract was fulfilled, the financing was put together, and I had raised the money, and I was about set to close, and I had to give my notice for the art teaching job. And they were like, no one ever quits. No one ever quits a high school art teaching job. It doesn't matter that they're not getting paid much. It's such a coveted job. So I was like, well, I'm going to have to quit, but because I wanted to stay home with my daughter, and that really changed my life. So I'm telling you that story, which I didn't realize I was going to launch into all of that. But I'm telling you that story for a few reasons. And that is, people think, oh, I can't do something that big. There's no way I could do something that big. They really need to think more like, let me just find that deal, and people will buy that deal from you, and that'll start sort of a cascade of potential deals. Really, like once I did that 104 unit and closed on it, first off, that replaced my income. And secondly, it made me sort of be seen as someone who knew what they were talking about. And by the way, on the way through this, I also met at one of those conferences a gentleman who everyone thinks he was my money partner. He was not. Who had experience. He had about 70 units. And I showed him what I was doing, and he was like, "Oh God, I'd love to get involved in this." We ended up partnering. We didn't partner right away. We just partnered on this deal, and we have partnered on every single deal since then. And he's like one of the greatest guys I've ever met. It's a platonic partnership. He's a little older than me, but one of the most wonderful men in my life. And he really helped me, close this deal too. But he wasn't my money. He didn't bring in the money. He didn't even think that he could necessarily do that.
Now,
but anyway,
are you talking about
my
Ed?
Story. Yes, I'm talking about Ed.
Ed Oliver, yeah.
Yeah. Love him. He's still he's still my partner. We've gone through ups and downs and lefts and rights, and we buy everything together. We partner on pretty much everything we do, and it's great.
When it comes to rental property insurance, understanding the costs, choices, and benefits can be overwhelming, and finding the right insurance provider can be frustrating. I had one company cancel 5 of my policies all at once for no good reason, and that's why I'm happy to have Mike Murphy from J.B. Harrison Insurance on my team. Mike is an independent agent who has always been able to find the right policy and the best provider for my insurance needs. Over the past 5 years, Mike has not only become my go-to insurance agent, he's also helped me manage risk, add value, and save money. If you are looking for insurance on a new acquisition, or you believe it's time to get a more comprehensive look at your entire portfolio, then Mike Murphy is the independent agent to call for all your insurance needs, auto, home, and business at 616-868-0050 or email mikem@jbhins.com. So let me ask you, if you had taken that $125,000 from the gentleman who offered it to you, what would you have missed out on with this deal that you would have sold?
Well, actually, that deal appraised when I closed on it by the bank at over $5 million, and I bought it for 3.2.
So you had almost $2 million equity then.
Yeah, but remember, I had partners, and that was in 2006 before the crash. But because because I had sort of mastered the whole cash flow thing, and actually, when I teach and I have a course, and I always give everything I've ever done. My course is actually, my home study course is magnificent in my opinion, but I became really good at numbers, and I could tell that the expenses were really high on this property. So anyway, we wrote out 2006. We still own the property today. I bought it for $32,000 a door. We bought it. Now remember, I have investors and I have partners in this. $32,000 a door. We just got an offer on it for almost $100,000 a door. Wow. So, but it pays me in, it has a positive cash flow that pays me every single month after month after month. And I don't run it. It's 99% occupied, and I have to spend about maybe 2 hours a month running my whole portfolio of 1,700 units. Or our whole portfolio. But had I gone with, this was a win-win, because if I had done the 125,000, I would have continued to look for deals and continued to cultivate investors and just continued. But in my opinion, that's what I think would have happened. So I really couldn't go wrong. And that's the thing about, like, there's all this fear sort of surrounded by taking your steps into these larger properties. But the most important thing that people really need to know is you're not eating the whole elephant down in one sitting. You're just taking steps, and each step is worth money to someone. I would buy a property wholesale in 2 seconds if it made sense. 2 seconds. But we're always buying. We're always looking for good deals. So.
Well, tell us about some of those steps. I mean, I know you have a lot of students, coaching students in your program. What are the steps you help them take to get their arms around this elephant, as you call it?
So the real important part to start with is finding the deal. So I actually break it down into 2 parts. You have 2 parts. I like to try to find investors at the same time as you're finding the deal, and you can find investors by going to, charity places, churches. That's not your only goal. Your goal is to go to the church. Your goal is to, be involved in that charity, or your goal is to play soccer with your kids or what have you. And it just gets you in a place where you're surrounded by people. Another place to go to are real estate investment associations. Definitely the Michigan Landlord Real Estate Investor Free Conference and Expo. That's a huge place to find investors. And what you do is, cultivate them. Don't say, it's not a wham, bam, thank you, ma'am type of situation. It's a, gather their cards, and when you do, and tell them what you're doing. And when you've got that together, you're going to start being able to cultivate those investors if you have a great deal. Now, on the other side of the coin, I recommend, so that's one side. So we're going to spend some time, let's just try to get eight cards a month. And that's easy because there's a lot of different places that you're going to go to do that. Now, the second thing you're going to do is you're going to start looking for deals. And I actually like to start with brokers and loopnet.com, loopnet, LOOPNET.com. I like to start there just to get an idea of the market and what have you. And then you can start like I do. I've got a whole course on, who to call, how to find them, how to talk to them, all of that. And then putting it into, I have an amazing cash flow analyzer now. And putting that into that analyzer so that you can see, so you can start finding these deals. Now, depending on which one is more successful to start, the finding the deal or raising the money, you can always partner up with someone. So let's say you end up being really good at raising money. Well, then you can easily find an operations partner to do a deal with. And if you find a deal, you can easily either wholesale that deal or you can find someone who can raise the money for you. So there's an awful lot of, there's a lot to do with partnerships in these larger deals. And there's a lot to do with what they call wholesaling, which means, you are selling that deal to another party who would be interested in closing it. So, when I joined your coaching group back in 2012, the
two things that I was most concerned about, and I was just kind of adrift and trying to figure out how to make them happen. One was structuring the deal. When you bring in investors, how do you structure the deal? And then the other thing that I really needed help with was marketing to those investors. How do you convey the information on the investment so that investors want to be part of it? Is that part of your program still?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Structuring. This is why you have to have a coach in doing larger deals, because what you just keyed into is something that is not intuitive. It's really the art of the deal. Structuring a deal, I mean, it's so much fun. I could look at a deal, now I can tell you whether or not an apartment deal will work in 1 minute. Well, where I've had students who come to me and they've been working on a deal for 8 months, and I look at it for 1 minute and say, nope, not going to work. Or I look at it for 1 minute and say, yep, this is good. Let's structure this deal. So you're not born with these beautiful abilities. This is something that you really want someone behind you who can really look at these deals and structure them very easy. At this point, now here's another thing. Don't feel that you must be a master. You just have to continually sort of take little bites of the elephant. But work with a master, because that's very, very important. I am a master at this point, and my partner, Ed Oliver, he's a master at it. We're very, very good at structuring deals. And it comes with looking at thousands of deals. It's really great, too. Remember, I coach people. So I look at deals from all around the country. So does my partner. So we have a really innate, it's like almost being a member of a club where you have such an inside track, and you just can't have that just out on the street.
Yeah. And when we talk about structuring deals, maybe it would help our listeners to know exactly what we're talking about. Like, what are we structuring?
So, to make it simple, I'm going to simplify this. I love the way, by the way, I have no idea what Brian's going to ask me. So this is, so really when you think about a deal, just think about it this way. Whoever brings in the money is going to expect a certain portion of that deal, probably 50% at least, maybe 75%. And the person who puts the deal together would like to get, say, 50% for doing everything, for finding the deal, making it more valuable, bringing in the value plays, probably finding the financing, probably sponsoring that note of the financing, and managing that deal for the next. Now, you're going to have a manager, a professional on-site manager, and professional on-site maintenance. That's a great idea. That's a great part about going a little bigger. But you're going to want to get a portion of that deal. So a great deal. Now, the deal dictates the split. So if the deal has a lot of meat on the bone or equity, you could do a 50-50 split with that, like the first deal that I told you about. And I basically only look for deals where I could do a 50-50 split, which means I can get out of the projected cash flow, I can get a certain percentage to my investor. And out of, and that's only going to be projected at a higher amount if I have a great deal. So the money is always in the deal. The money is, you always make your money when you buy, when you do these things. A wholesaling fee that you would get from a great deal is going to be higher if it's a great deal. Whereas if it's just a mediocre deal, you might not even want to wholesale that, or you're not going to be seeing as much of a benefit to your pocket with that. But so think of it as, think of it going in as, your investor is going to get a certain percentage, at least 50%. You and your group, so I have also other owners, other sweat equity partners in this group, or maybe a sponsor or what have you, you'll get 50% that you can kind of divvy up. Now, it depends on the strength of the deal, how that gets divvied up. And it depends on, with the 50-50 split, I mean, this is just an example, because what's beautiful about apartment complexes and larger deals is that the split, the deal really determines how you structure it.
Yeah. What are some of the mistakes you see investors making when they put together the structure and the equity splits with their investors?
Well, thinking they brought way more to the table than they did, and not understanding where they really are situated in the structure of this deal and what they're really capable of. That's the first problem. But the second problem that's more important, not as much the structuring as that, is verifying whether or not this is a good deal, because people. I've noticed with students, a lot of times they like to take a deal and try to squeeze it into the good box, and it's not. So they're continually, going, well, what if we did this and what if we did that, and well, yeah, I mean, maybe that'll work if you can, get the seller to sell it 25% of his sales price. But there's actually a lot of deals out there that should be torn down. There's a lot of buildings out there, that, if it's vacant and it's 100 unit, I mean, run in the other direction. Don't even get involved in something like that. That's harrowing, and the risk level is substantial. The risk level greatly increases the more vacant the property is. And I don't mean that you can't make a deal work. Actually, I seem to recall, Brian, that you had a little bit less occupied building that I thought you did really well on, but I'm not sure, because that was while we were coaching.
Yeah, there have been a couple buildings. Well, I was buying during the Great Recession, so there was a lot of stuff that was in foreclosure, was empty. But it was empty because the bank had foreclosed on the property.
Oh, yeah.
Kicked everyone out. Yeah. So, yeah, but I hear what you're saying. I mean, there's added risk when you do buy a vacant property.
Well, and what's interesting about what you just said is that if the people have just moved out because the bank foreclosed, and by the way, in larger properties, the bank does not need to kick everyone out. But in smaller properties, 3s and 4s, residential, it is usually and anything like that's even 8 family or 10 family, they will tend to kick people out, which is stupid. But but with larger deals, a lot of times they will keep those people in, but sometimes they'll kick them out too, because they don't know what they're doing. So Brian is a master at filling these properties back up and all that. And I've done that too. Trust me, I've done these enormous turnarounds. But I don't think that it's always the best first person play for their first property. But then again, that's just, everyone has their own opinions and everyone has things that work for them. And that's the beauty of this too.
Well, it's a lot more work and it's a lot more management intensive. And for your first deal,
Yes.
you may not get to your second deal if your first one is vacant like that.
And that's the other thing is you really, if you make your first deal a great deal, you're going to be riding off of that success forever. Whereas if you make your first deal a bad deal, it's really hard to get back from that, and it can really crush you. So I like those sort of plug and play deals where it's, maybe a little less projected cash flow for your first deal, but at least it's, it's occupied and in good shape.
Yeah, well, I want to go back to something you said, because we're talking about how do you know when a deal is good, and you mentioned and people who will work a deal for 8 months and show it to you, and in 1 minute you're like, nope, this is not a good deal. Can you tell us why that happens and what you see with those investors, what mistakes they're making?
Yeah, a lot of times they're not putting, and my software will do this for you, by the way. A lot of times they're not putting in the right expenses. They're undercutting their expenses, and they're also they're forgetting their turnaround costs and how occupied it really is. So those will be big red flags immediately. And it's things that a trained eye will see right away. If you're thinking that you can run this property for $2,000 a door, and really it takes at least $4,000 a door to run this property, that's going to massively impact your cap rate and your projected returns. So it's so that's why you really want someone on your side who can see this stuff. So that's a big mistake. Buying in a bad area, when a student tells me that the broker told them it's in a C minus area, well, that's a D. That's a D area. So, and what I'm talking about there is in the wonderful world of real estate investing, you have different areas, and it's sort of like it's classified, and this is not written in a book, and you can't, there's no delineation of lines or anything, but you have the A areas, the B areas, the C areas, and the D areas. And the D areas are the places, where a normal place, not New York City or anything, there are bars on the windows and real like seedy, and it's not good. And you really, as much as you want to be altruistic and you want to create these awesome neighborhoods, it's very difficult to turn around a culture. So if you're buying in a bad neighborhood, which, by the way, in large apartment complexes, you can actually see that in the numbers. You can see that in the numbers, which is really cool.
How so? How do you see them?
Delinquency rate. If the delinquency rate is really low or really high, that can just tip you off that you need to investigate the area a little further.
Delinquency being people who just aren't paying
unpaid
the
rent.
Unpaid
Yeah,
rents,
that's a big trap. So you really want to look at that. If there's a high delinquency rate, then you have to, and you need to do this anyway, you have to look at the very immediate surrounding area, like the very close area to it, the 1 mile radius. Is everything occupied in that 1 mile radius? Is it 99% occupied, 95% occupied? Rentals are doing very well right now. So you should be looking at, if it's a decent neighborhood, you should be looking at a 95% occupancy rate, no less than a 92. And there should be very little unpaid rent, because most people in this world do believe in an apartment complex that they need to pay the rent, or else they're going to get thrown out. So if this has a high delinquency rate, there's a very good chance that's a culture of non-payers. It's a culture of, and you can't change that culture. You can't. Well, I'm not going to say can't, because I hate that word. I hate the word can't. But if an area is devastated and no one is paying their rent, all they end up doing is they go from one apartment to another apartment, and the people will take them just because they're warm blood, So you really just have to be very careful to buy in an okay area. C plus, B minus, B, A. It's great, but D's are very, very difficult to fix.
I'm going to ask you a kind of a off the wall kind of question. I know that or at least what I learned from you is kind of buy the B and C properties where you can improve the property because the neighborhood warrants the improvement of the property and you can add value that way. Have you ever bought an A property or a D property and had that experience?
Yeah. So I like to, instead of fixing it with a hammer and nail, I like to make a rule of thumb of fixing it because their expenses are too high or their income is too low, or both. So I really look for that stuff. And Brian, I did well during the recession as well. I lucked out. I did have a couple that did not do well, and all of those were because I broke the rules of thumb that I have that makes it so I don't buy the wrong place. And I guess to go back to your question right before that, you asked me, how do I know? I can tell you the 5 things that I would, or maybe 4 things that I would make sure that I do. Now, they don't really apply for some people because if you're buying some under occupied property, that's sort of your business, but you are taking on more risk. So my basically 4 things I'll say is under occupied property. I stay away from bad areas. I stay away from if the whole area is under occupied, I would stay away from that. I don't like large rehabs because it's just too much work for me. And if you build it, they may not come. So those are some of my top 4 things that I would indicate that I would, not do those properties. And when I said that I could look at something in 2 minutes and know, that's a whole balance between what the income and the expenses are, and does the property positively cash flow? And I'd put that number one in that five. Now I gave you five. Number one is buy on actual numbers, buy based on positive cash flow. So you can look at a property very quickly and by the numbers determine whether or not this property is gonna work based on those numbers. So then back to your other question, what were some of my big failures? I did very well. Me and my partners did very well in some properties, and then in others. We had a couple that we hit the recession on, and we bought in a D area. Oh, it was a C minus based on the broker opinion, but that's the thing.
Has a broker ever sold a property and they said it's a solid D area?
No,
has that ever come out of a broker's mouth?
They will not do that. And here's the thing, what you need to remember, everyone on this call, is if you're working with a broker, which is not a bad idea, but you do want to try to find as many off-market properties as you can. But if you're working with a broker, understand that broker works for the seller. So they're going to tell you two of the biggest lies are you can increase the income. Oh, I'm going to say three. It's not being managed properly, but you can manage it better. And this area is a C minus and not a D. So those are your three biggest lies that you really have to watch out for. And you also have to realize that this broker wants the sale. He is working for the seller, period. He wants you to close on this.
So tell us about you say you bought some C minus properties, which ended up being Ds. What happened there?
Well, I bought them at the very cusp of the huge drop. Like I bought them like in August 2008. I happened to buy like three properties that I bought at a bargain. I bought them at like 50% of all the others. So in the comps, there's a lot of things I look at when I buy. The positive cash flow on these would have been incredible. But no one was paying. And it was in a culture of non-payers. And it was okay. But then our recession hit and boom, everyone moved away. Now, hindsight, you could say, well, no one knew of course, there were plenty of people who saw it coming and after the fact. And there were plenty of people who shamans who predicted it was going to come, but no one. A lot of people got hit by it pretty hard, and people really thought that. Well, I still did buy really low, and there's, and I'm talking about the crash of like October 2000, November 2008. That's the crash that I'm talking about, and a lot of people, it's easy to say you saw it coming, but you also have to realize. Let's say you were a developer. You've got things in the pipeline for 2 years before you're coming to fruition, 3 years, 4 years, So, you may see that coming. An apartment deal takes 4 or 5 months to finish, So, you can say all you want. You saw it coming.
Sounds like it was a combination of timing and just you thought they were C properties, but they ended up being D properties or in a D area.
So the timing really screwed me up. The location was probably more of a C minus before the crash, but I broke a bunch of rules that I had that I didn't have yet. See, this is where some of these rules came from. I bought under occupied property. I thought if I build it, they will come. I put a bunch of money into a physical rehab. I did not. I thought that I could manage it better than the person before me. So I was slightly cocky, and even though I'm not really the most cocky person in the world, but you start to feel you've done some great deals, and you start, things were riding high, and we were doing well. Oh, and I constructed an amazing deal on this. I didn't even bring any money to the table. Yeah.
How'd you manage that?
Because the bank wanted to get rid of it.
Okay.
No, I've done some really good deals that I've actually brought no money to the table, but those are sort of the the polar bear in the, in Maine kind of thing.
Well,
Maine's not that cold.
I think what it illustrates is you've seen and done it all. You've had great deals. You've had some deals that have not been so good. What about your students?
Brian, if you tell me you went through 2008 and you had property that you bought from 2006 to 2008, and you tell me that you didn't make any mistakes, that you didn't get hurt, then I don't believe you.
Well, I took your coaching, Sue. How could I make mistakes?
I don't mean you. Well, and with the coaching, it was really, really helpful, right? To have someone behind you who was, making that happen, right?
Absolutely. Well,
or you're not making it, but helping you. I mean, you have to do everything. I mean, I'm only there to make sure you don't make huge mistakes, and also to help you analyze the deals properly and how are we going to get in this and all that stuff. But you were a stellar student because you made it happen.
Yeah. You get out of coaching what you put into it. That's always my feeling. Out of coaching or out of training, you get what you put into it. Now, I definitely made plenty of mistakes, but you're right. It does help to have someone who's experienced and knowledgeable kind of hold your hand and walk you through it to make sure that you don't make the same mistakes they've made or have seen made.
I think it's essential in this line of work. I think it's essential because I would have made that mistake that I told you about over and over and over and over if I didn't have coaching. And boy, talk about, I mean, I lost a couple million on that. I did well on all the other ones, so it balanced it out very, very much so. But more than, definitely tipped the scale high, but it hurt, Absolutely. And I would have avoided that if I had a really good coach behind me, because it would have stopped me from doing it.
Let's talk about your students then, your coaching students. What kind of successes and success stories have you heard from them?
Well, I'm glad that you said what you said, because it all really has to do with how much effort that person puts through. Another thing that's really important is this sort of feeling that we try to help our coaching students get is that, you can really do this. People have a hard time realizing that they think they can't do this. Oh, I can't, or what have you. But we have students who have more properties than me. More than 2,000 units, 3,000 units. People who've started from nothing, stay-at-home moms, people who have, who just lost their job, no money, all of those things, but we're really driven. And then we've also had students who, and we've had students who started our program who have over $40 million in property before they even start with us, and we still coach them for years and years. So we're really kind of tailored to any student, very beginner, very, very beginner to very advanced. We sort of do it all the way through. But again, it's all about how much what kind of effort do they put through. And another thing that seems to end up with coaching as well is sometimes we're really good at business coaching too. So it's not just apartments, it's buying anything. Buying a car wash, or starting up a restaurant, or starting up, different things. We're just, so we'll even find that some of our students will come in to do real estate, and then they end up following their passion, buying other businesses. Because when you're buying properties that are on a larger scale, that are commercial, you're really buying a business. So all of the things that we teach apply to every business. You could use my cash flow analyzer for to analyze your business, a potential business.
Yeah, that's great. I know that the training program I actually signed up for was on note investing. Buying commercial notes on multifamily and apartments. But the real reason I signed up with your program was because I knew you had the multifamily experience and the apartment experience. And I was just very impressed by your breadth of knowledge and really a lot of your creative deal structuring as well.
Oh my God. I love putting together creative deals. And it's too bad that we haven't even had enough time to much talk about that, but I love putting together creative deals. So, but back to what you said about the notes and stuff. So I am a proponent in larger properties to really look to be the transaction engineer. So I'm really interested in either buying it as a note or buying it as an REO or an actual property. And everything in between, because what I want to do is work out the problems that the owner or the bank or what have you, my seller is having, so that I can kind of, people think, oh, the best thing to do is to go in there and we're going to really screw over the seller, and that's not what you want to do at all. You actually want to find out what that seller wants, find out what the seller's needs are, so you can come up with a really cool win-win solution for them. So that's really what you want to do. So I teach both notes, buying both notes and buying the actual property and everything in between, working with any type of seller, working with the banks, working with the brokers, working with pretty much anyone, and then creating these really cool creative deals where, every single one of my deals has a creative component to it, if not a few. So they might look like, and I'm going to throw out some words that maybe some people might not know right away, but that's why you have to go to the Michigan Landlord Real Estate Investor Conference. You have to go to that. You're crazy not to if you're in the area. So it might have a master lease option attached to it. It always has some investor proponent to it. So that's called syndication. It always has, or not always, but there's so I use concepts of master lease option. I use component collateralization. That's my own term for it. Where I have, and I'd have to go into this a different time, but where I can take a piece of the property and have it used as the down payment, the closing costs, and potentially even your acquisition fee, which the acquisition fee is a percentage of the purchase price that goes right into your pocket day one. So that's really exciting. And then I've used so many different cool creative techniques to get into these owner financing, owner equity splits, all sorts of things. Your goal in real estate investing, to some degree, is to come to the table with the least amount of money so you can get the largest interest back to your investors, and all the while buying a really great property and getting great cash flow from it. So those are the types of things that I'm always very conscious of. And again, that's what a great coach will bring to you. How do you construct these deals? How do you come to the table with the least amount of money? How do you make sure you have an acquisition fee? I had like 400 units before I knew there was such a thing as an acquisition fee. And an acquisition fee is something that is standard in commercial. So I had the same investors on these deals, and suddenly I put in an acquisition fee, and not one single investor mentioned it. And I know what they were thinking. They were like, "Oh my God, she finally figured out."
She finally figured out that she can pay herself up front for all the work she's put into it.
That means I lost like $400,000 in immediate income, and I mean, had I had a coach for 1 hour, they would have told me, where's your acquisition fee?
As we wrap it up here, tell our listeners why they should come listen to you speak at this conference. It's you'll be speaking February 22nd and 23rd. That's at Friday and Saturday. You're doing 2 separate 2-hour sessions. So there's going to be a lot of great information during those sessions. Why should people come hear you speak live about this?
Well, I wasn't pacing around because I'm actually stuck to this microphone right now, which is not normal for me. Usually I get so hyped up on these calls. But, so I hope I was entertaining enough. But the thing is, I will entertain you first and foremost, but also, or I hope to, but also you'll leave with tools, tips, and techniques that'll work immediately in your business, no matter what business you have. And you're going to have fun. You're going to meet like-minded people in the audience. And this could, my first real estate convention that I went to was a lot like this one. It was huge, larger. And I learned so much. It was incredible. And I walked out of that the first day. It was a 2-day convention. I walked out of there going, you know what? I'm never going to be poor again. It really had a profound effect on me. So you're crazy. I mean, it's free, and it's really time for, I think, if you haven't considered the legacy of what you're leaving behind and what you're going to do, are you working for a corporation? Are you, do you want to leave your job? Do you want to, what do you want to do? I mean, I can tell you if it works out the right way, if my kids are good enough with this, or my great grandchildren potentially will be set, so what do you do? And I'm one thing about me is I'm 80% learner every single day. My job is to just learn more. So I love learning about like every type of investing and all the different avenues. So come, because you're going to have an amazing time. You're going to love what I have to teach. But you're going to also love what all these other people have to teach too. I mean, we're not holding things. Everyone always thinks, they're just trying to sell us something. They're just trying to, they're holding all the real information back. I don't hold anything back. I'm an open book. I mean, there's only so much you can fit in 4 hours, but, and remember, you only have to come for 2 hours of it. You can come to one session or the other session or what have you. But these people who talk, they have a huge wealth of information and knowledge that they're just willing to impart because they're successful and, they really want you to be successful. The reason why I have home study courses and coaching and stuff is not as a money grab. I make almost no money in my info. I make all my money in apartments. I do it because I was a teacher first, and it's a way for me to give back. And I want you to leave with something so you actually have a roadmap of what to do. You're not going to be able to do it all from just coming to the convention, but boy, is it a great start. I would never, if I lived in the area or if I had to drive 7 hours to it, I would never miss this. So there you go.
That's fantastic. And I want to go back to your original why. And you were talking about your daughter and the health problems that she had. How did that work out, and how has investing in real estate helped you get through that period?
I am so glad you brought that back up. I don't want everyone to be on the line and be all miserable because they didn't hear the end of the story. But so this is now 13 years later. She runs, she walks, she talks, she moves independently, she feeds herself. She's amazing. She's like a little angel. Everyone loves her. They fall in love with her right away. She's so sweet, and she really makes people happy. She is developmentally delayed, and she will always be. But she brings so much joy and so much happiness to the world, and she does everything. As soon as I get off of here, I'm bringing her shopping for some uniforms because she's going to this awesome new school. She's finally out of public school, actually, which was fine. But she's just a light of everyone who comes in contact with her's life. And real estate, I can't say that real estate did that for her, but it surely helped. And it surely helped me. And, I was only really working 2 hours a week doing the apartments. And then I was, doing all the physical therapy with her. I was literally crawling for her. We were I'd take 2 other people and we'd actually, fake crawl to get her to move and stuff. And it's huge. Now she's going to be financially set. So she won't have to worry about money. We won't have to worry about assisted living opportunities. It really changed my life, but it really changed her life. And I thank God for her every single day. And my other 2 sons. I have 2 other sons who are amazing.
Wow, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. I can't wait to see you in person when you come in February, Sue. I'm really looking forward to your presentation. And I know from firsthand experience that you do, like you say, you are an open book. And that's why I gravitated toward you in the first place when I joined your coaching, was because you do share everything. There's nothing you keep up your sleeve. It's all on the table. And you have so much experience and knowledge to share. Definitely worked out this way that I would be able to get to that next step that I needed to get to through your training. So thank you for that. And once again, it's the Michigan Landlord and Real Estate Investor Free Conference and Expo, February 21st through 23rd. You're going to be there that Friday and Saturday of 2019 here in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And you can go to rpoaonline.org to register for free. Sue, thank you so much for talking with me today.
Oh God, no, it's, honestly, you make me feel so great, because having successful students has always been my aim. And I just love hearing, what differences I might be able to have brought to the table to, add to your success. But you did it. And I'm very thankful for students like you. And I can't wait. I will be there with bells on in Michigan. So, hey, if I can fly from Connecticut there, you guys can get out and do this. And come to this convention. It's going to be fantastic.
This episode was sponsored by Green Property Management, managing everything from single-family homes to apartment complexes in the West Michigan area. Find out more at greenpropertymgt.com. And Mike Murphy at JB Harrison Insurance, helping real estate investors to understand and choose their best options for all their insurance needs. Call 616-868-0050 or email mikem@jbhins.com.
You've been listening to the Rental Property Owner and Real Estate Investor Podcast, brought to you by the Rental Property Owner Association. You can find out more at rpoaonline.org. If you enjoyed this podcast, please go to iTunes to subscribe, rate, and review.